Hello, Caleb, and welcome again to the Lead Start Multifamily Podcast. We're back at it talking about multifamily marketing. All right, Caleb, so we are going to talk about multifamily math. And I know that this is a place where you have a large amount of expertise, so I'm really excited to pick your brain on this. We've worked together for a long time, and you've always had this theory of a math formula, and it goes like this: 8, 25, 33. But what does it all mean? So we're going to dive into that today. We spent a lot of time on the last few episodes talking about what not to do. So this is the episode where we talk about what to do. All right, we're going to dive right into it. Caleb, I hope you're ready for this. We got an action-packed episode today for all of our fans. Let's go ahead and get the share going. Today I want to show the digital marketing funnel. This is kind of the way that we think about how we do our jobs. It's the way that we have built our marketing campaigns. It's the way that multifamily should operate from the top of your funnel down to the bottom of your funnel. And this is basically a theory that, well, Caleb, I actually don't know where this theory came from. So could you elaborate a little bit? Where did you hear about this in your career? Was this something that you were trained on? Is there a business where this came across your plate one day?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I will get into a little bit of a storytelling mode for a second. When I entered the industry, I felt like there was a lot lacking from my perspective. I was at one of the best operators, I believe, in the country, Nolan Real Estate. Shout out Nolan. From an operational perspective, they were incredible operators, meaning like they understood every aspect of multifamily. When I got into marketing, I told that story a couple of weeks ago of sitting down and listening to Apartments.com spiel. And it was very obvious to me we needed to be very different than what they were offering. There was no funnel, there was no process, there was no lead to tour to lease expectation. And when they existed, it was very opinion oriented. Like there was no formula set in stone of this is what we should be looking for, this is how we should be looking for it. Over my career, over the last 10 years, I've been piecing all of this together. And now I feel so strong about this formula being the thing, the backbone of everything you do in digital marketing should fall into this funnel. And it should be complementing the previous or the next step in the funnel. And if it doesn't very clearly help get that 8, 25, 33, it doesn't improve those numbers, and it's not valuable in our funnel. Or AKA it's a like we talked about last week, it's a toll booth operator. And we want to eliminate the noise in our funnel, right? So long-winded way of saying this funnel has been built, these formulas have been kind of tested, brought in from different people. All of these formulas exist in some capacity in different segments of our industry. And what I try to do to bring to every client, to every relationship, is bring it all together. Every time that I'm on a call with a client, almost every time, and they're like, hey, should we increase spend? Should we do this? Should we create new ad groups? I always go back to this. This is going to be the thing. This is going to be this funnel math is going to determine, are you going to win or are you going to lose when it comes to multifamily digital marketing? More specifically, are you going to lease? And when we can add clear data to it, clear expectations, then it's going to allow us to actually dissect our funnel and understand what is not working. In marketing, since the start of marketing, 10,000 years ago, there's been 5 true principles that everybody stands on, right? Pricing, placement, promotion, people, or product, the 5 P's of marketing. This formula is to help us dissect which of those marketing foundations, some of those marketing principles are not working, right? So this is just data that's adding almost common sense to which part of the funnel is not working. Because what happens so often in multifamily, you have been in the conversation, I have been in the conversation almost daily of, hey, our marketing's not working, or hey, we're not leasing, or hey, we need more leases. And I bring this up and we bring sense to the funnel. So we actually can identify, hey, do you have a people problem? Do you have a promotion problem? Do you have a placement problem? Is it pricing? Or is it your product, right? Is it tour to lease? So as we go through this today, right, the point of this funnel, the reason I get so excited and why I've worked so hard to build this formula that I don't think really existed 10 years ago is to bring clarity to the conversation. We want to bring clarity to your funnel, and we want to add data to it, right? We don't want to just be opinion-based marketers, right? That's the worst thing you can do in digital marketing, is have too strong of an opinion if the data doesn't back it up. I'll stop there, but really, again, ultimate goal here with the formula is just bring clarity. We want to create a scalable, sustainable funnel. And if we're hitting these metrics, you are going to have success. You're going to have a low cost per lease. You are going to lease at a high rate.
This makes a lot of sense, and I really liked what you said about, the training that we got at Nolan. Caleb and I met at Nolan, and I agree they had such an incredible regiment from, the very top of the, executive level of the organization all the way down to a leasing agent and everything in between. Everybody was marching the same direction. Everybody knew what the goal was. They had all kinds of incentives for, employees to, perform well. And I really think if I had worked at a different multifamily agency, or kind of started off in the industry from a different, entry point, I probably wouldn't have lasted in multifamily because I wouldn't have got that great training. And the training really goes so far in terms of like, how is this business supposed to operate so that everybody can be, making money for the executive level, which, ultimately we want to make money for the owners. That's why they own these properties. That's why they hire all their staff to manage these properties. And everybody has to march to that same drumbeat to make that happen.
Yeah, it's really, really well said. And that last piece you just said is, I think, the most important, which is this game plan allows us to all march the same direction. So when we get on with you and we give a recommendation of increasing spend or decreasing spend, it's actually coming from this math, this formula. We've already worked this math for your previous 30 days. We've taken your occupancy, we've taken your vacancy, and we've added a recommendation based on this math, right? And this gives the Lead Start team, a clear game plan, and we're excited to show it to you because I think it will help bring clarity to which part of your funnel is not working. Because reality is, at some point, I guarantee it, and this is a surprise to anybody, but you're gonna run into some problems in multifamily leasing. This point at the bottom, I kind of want to start with it. The 10 to 13 points of contact, that is a lot, and I think it's actually one of the most important points and one of the most under discussed things in multifamily is our prospects, our renters. This is the biggest decision they're going to make in their year. Typically, like this is the biggest financial decision they're going to make from year to year. So we have a very unique buying journey. Most digital marketing has a very clean cut, dry dollar spent, sale taking place, conversion happen. There's typically not this long, big chunk of time in between first click and conversion at the end, aka lease. But for us, it's a very long journey, right? So to start, understand that this 10 to 13 points, this is actually a point from RealPage in 2023. They did this big, large study. They took 100,000 prospects. And this is what they came up with, saying you're going to need 10 to 13 points of contact with that prospect to move them from the top red all the way down to the lease in green. So understand, again, why this funnel is so important is because our prospects, your renters, are we're in a very unique space. The rest of the world, maybe outside of the automobile industry, it's the only comparable industry, I think, to multifamily, obviously hospitality a little bit as well. But there's not this huge amount of time in between generating a lead and closing the deal, right? This is a very long journey. And that's why this funnel is so important, to Jonno's point, is we want to have a game plan. Because if you only have bits and pieces of this figured out, you're going to struggle because, yeah, you may be able to get people to your website. That's just stage one. That's just one point of contact. There's 12 more that have to happen. And that's why we want to obviously go through this today. But obviously, we're in a very unique industry and there's a lot of very unique need.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is I was a Google Ads expert before I came to multifamily, and not a lot of crossover between my expertise in my former life and multifamily. I mean, Caleb and I sat down and said, we have to solve this problem. We have to get success for our company, and we have to do it using Google Ads. And, we have to get rid of the big players. We had the Yardi Google Ads. We had the G5 Google Ads. We had probably everything under the sun. And then we finally just got rid of all of them and said, let's do it ourselves. So I totally agree that the way that you get everybody marching the same direction and get everybody on the same page, I can't tell you how many client meetings I've been where I bring this out, I talk from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, everybody nods their head, the leasing agent, the property manager, the regional, the owner, everybody sees this, nods their head and says, yes, this is true, this is the way things work. Then I think the next thing we really have to go through here is what's the 8, what's the 25, what's the 3, and why are those things so important? How can it be that simple, Caleb?
Yeah, so we add 8%, and I'll kind of walk through the numbers now. 8% is going to mean lead to lease. So everyone's heard the term lead to lease. Think about it from a very broad perspective. We expect 8, and I will say 8-10, 8 to 10%, 8 being the average of what we see, 8 to 10% of all of your leads should be turning into leases. That is, if your funnel is humming, you will look at 100 leads and you will see 10 leases come out the bottom. You'll see 8 average. You'll see 8 leases come out. If we generate 100 leads, we want to see 8 leases happen. That's the 8% lead to lease. Now, how do we actually get them through the funnel? What are the metrics we want to look for through the funnel? If we have an 8% lead to lease, what we're going to have to do on the digital marketing side is we need to be able to turn 25% of your overall lead volume into the tour stage. So the tour stage obviously is that blue at the bottom, and you can see that there's 5 stages in between lead being generated and tour stage. But there is going to have to be a large number. We have established that we think a healthy digital marketing campaign will turn out 25% of those leads into the tour phase, meaning that they showed up for a tour. They booked a tour on your website. They showed up. We confirmed that 25% of your tours actually converted, meaning conversion just simply means from one stage to the next. Conversion's used all over our industry in different ways. Conversion can mean a whole lot of different things. The way that I define it is one stage into the next. We want them to convert from here over to here. So we want to see 25% of your overall lead volume get into that tour stage. Then finally, the most important, most critical, also the most challenging is because I say it's most challenging because most of us in the marketing space don't have direct impact in actually converting the tour into a lease, meaning that tour actually takes action to apply and become a lease and move in, of course. We expect to see a healthy campaign. If all the 5 Ps are working correctly, then we want to see 1 of every 3 tours actually turn into that lease stage. So there's really 3 separate stages: lead, tour, and lease. These are the metrics that I have worked really hard to define and say, this is what health looks like. And if we can be in the healthy range, then we're going to be able to replicate. We're going to be able to have a low cost per lease. Everyone's going to win in this environment, right? The owner is going to get a low cost per lease. The marketer is going to be happy because they're generating a lot of leads. The property manager is going to be happy because their funnel is full. Everyone wins when we can, truly follow that 8-25-33. And that's kind of the breakdown of what we think health looks like. Now, again, please understand when I'm talking about this, when we're going through this, this is really defined for a stable asset. We know that there's a lot of one-offs. You're in a lease up, you're in a really odd scenario. This is going to be the math you want to follow when you are in what I call more of a stable environment, meaning that you don't need 25 leases tomorrow. If you need 25 leases tomorrow, some of this data goes out the window because you're going to have insane amounts of leads, tours, and leases. And it's a lot harder in large data quantities to meet that expectation. I will additionally say, back to our conversation about AI last week, I've seen lead to lease dramatically go down over the last 12 months across all of my portfolios because, again, we're generating more leads than we ever have. We're capturing more renter information than we ever have. So that 8%, again, may be becoming 5, right? As AI continues to evolve, I'm going to evolve, and I might say 5% is healthy because we're just generating more leads than we ever have. I just haven't seen enough of that yet to divvy. But the 8-25-33 is going to signal each step of your funnel is working. My favorite part about it, Jonno, is if you're not hitting these metrics, is it gives you a very clear game plan what you should be focusing on. And here's the practical example. If you have a 12% lead to tour, it means you may not be marketing in the right areas. It means that you may have a conversion problem at the top. Or it may mean your website stinks. It may mean they're not able to schedule a tour very easily. It gives us a very...
Or you could have a people problem too, because if they're not picking up the phone, calling the tours, they're not sending the text messages confirming that they're going to show up. They're not doing those extra points of contact. This is one of the points I actually wanted to bring up. I'm glad you kind of segued into there. Very seamless, Caleb. The top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, you can have all kinds of problems in there. And I really like how the 8-25-33 allows you to diagnose, where is my problem? Is it at the top of the funnel? Is it at the middle of the funnel? Is it at the bottom of the funnel? So if it's a bottom of the funnel issue, you're not getting that, the 1 of every 3 tours turning into a lease. You could have a product problem. People come to that tour, they see, a dead roach in the corner, and they go, I'm done. I'm not leasing with you now. So it really does help you identify, okay, top of the funnel is full, bottom of the funnel is empty. Now I have an issue at the bottom of the funnel. I know that.
Exactly. And that's how we want to use this, right? It's not to deter or point blame on anybody. It's to help us fix quickly, because what happens so often in multifamily is we're all shooting. A lot of us are shooting, at the hip. We're throwing money into the universe, over to ILS, over to maybe PPC, or maybe a different platform. You're firing money away, and then you're turning around and saying, "Did we lease? Yes or no?" And maybe you had a good leasing month, maybe you had a bad leasing month. You don't really know why you had a good leasing month, good or bad. What this is going to allow us to do is actually month over month go in and understand why did we lease or why did we not lease. And then it's going to allow us to very specifically pinpoint which stage of the funnel is broken. And to your point, if we're having a rough lead to tour, it really kind of, in my opinion, it does go back to 2 to 3 things. If our tour to lease is low, it's very likely going to be product or people, right? Because they have indicated, they've got to your website and they've scheduled a tour. If somebody gets to your website and they schedule a tour, and especially if they show up, they're not wasting their own time. You don't have an unqualified problem. If you have the right 25% of your overall lead volume getting to that stage, you don't have a pricing and you don't have a placement or promotion, really. You don't have those. You can eliminate those 3 problems, because prospects, for the most part, I know that there's one-offs that I can hear people, I've heard it 1,000 times. You don't understand this property. I understand that may happen sometimes, but prospects really aren't wasting 3 hours of their life to come visit unless they actually think they want to lease there, or they can afford it, or they actually believe it's a good fit. So I actually think in marketing, that's the most important metric that I cling on to the most is that tour count. Because once we get to that stage, we can confidently say your pricing is probably pretty good. Your promotion's pretty good. We can safely eliminate pricing and promotion being safe, and we've done our job as a digital marketing group to get that first top of the funnel handled. From there, right, we have this handoff, right? That's where the marketing team and the operation team really have to work together to get, to understand that. Because what a good marketing team should be doing is signaling and saying, hey, we did get 25% last month. Now we need to focus our time and energy into the lead management stage, because that's where we're going to win or lose now, right? Once we've got the people to our website, we've converted, we've targeted very specifically, we've established a really healthy conversion number, a cost per lead at the top of the funnel. We're going to be able to replicate that all day long, right, Jonno? Like, we can pop that off over and over and over and over and over, and probably bring that number down, is what I see Jonno do most of the time in his team. But then there's this next stage of actually converting the tour that we have to work with operations on. And everyone in multifamily, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to work with operations. You are part of operations.
You better like it.
Speaking back to Nolan, I used to joke because I thought, I'm not in operations. I had some wise people at Nolan used to tell me, yes, you are. Like, we are in operations, whether you like it or not. Our industry is designed around heads and beds. And if we are not leasing, we are going to have to be part of the solution, which is teaching and educating why lead management is so important. Speaking back to last week, Connie was highlighting the woes in multifamily right now, that her biggest life hack may just be picking up the phone. It's important that the marketers of the world continue to say that and explain that, hey, there's a big opportunity right now in lead management, because most of us have checked out with the AI revolution, and that handoff from AI to human is not happening. And that will destroy our funnel. That will ultimately result in a very low lead to lease. And again, we're all ultimately going to be responsible for that. So it's important we speak up on that point.
I like to think that marketing is really operational support, because what we do is make sure that operations has everything that they need. It's like we're not in operations, but operations determines our success or not. Like, operations is our stakeholder at the end of the day. So, if operations ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So I wanted to come back to another thing that I thought of earlier, which is vocabulary. There really is a vocabulary of multifamily, and you taught me this vocabulary. The lead to lease, the lead to tour, the tour to lease. Those are some of the vocabulary words that you'll find. And then of course you see everything that's on the funnel down there from top to bottom. That's all vocabulary words. Coming back to that training point, I think if you're in with some of these newer operators that have just bought their first property since 2020 and they're still trying to figure everything out, you may not be getting that kind of exposure and that kind of training that you really need to have success in the multifamily industry. And that's why you really should take a second and hit that subscribe button and pay attention to, this podcast, or find another multifamily podcast that you like. But, hopefully you guys stick here with us and kind of come to terms with, this is the way the industry works. It's not going to change. And that's something that I had to learn so early on. When Caleb told me these numbers, it's like they're set in stone. And I was like, dude, they can't be like that. There's no industry that's just regular like this. Coming back to what I was saying earlier, my previous experience just didn't cross over. And once I was willing to just believe you and say what he's saying is actually true, it's the truth. And if I operate this way, I will get to success. I have to trust, my fearless, digital marketing lead and just do what he says, right? And it worked, right? So the proof has to be in the pudding. And for me, it was. I learned that, wow, you actually do on average see 8% lead to lease. You actually do on average see 25% lead to tour. They were true. And then when I lived by that math, I was able to identify, okay, I have a problem here, and we would go and diagnose those. And for us, coming back to, are we operations or not? As a marketing team, we would fly to these properties. We would go tour these properties. We would go tour their comps. We had to put a lot of operational work into, showing up and being there and knowing the property pretty well. So I found that these numbers were accurate in my day-to-day life, just managing all the different portfolios that we've worked on.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you said there about the industry is set. Once you're in multifamily marketing, you're in it forever. Once you get in multifamily, you're in it forever. People don't know that coming into multifamily.
It's so true.
When you take your first job and you're like, yeah, this sounds fun. People don't leave. It's the same, few 100,000 people, 100,000 people in the industry that, run the industry. And that's also, kind of scary, but also very freeing. And I would encourage all of you, what I love about multifamily is I had the opportunity to be around, again, awesome operators young in my career. I could rattle off a few dozen people that were really monumental in helping me understand each parts of this stage. And I would encourage you, if you're new to multifamily, get in with educators, get in with people that understand the industry. The industry is so broad, right? There's so much going on. These are, some cases, $10 million assets, $100 million assets in some cases, very expensive. There's so many parts of multifamily. The best way is to find education, get in with somebody, and it's going to be a lot easier to learn because we want to mentor, we want to coach. Early at Nolan, I could, so many people come to mind. They would teach me about each part of this, each part of this funnel. But again, what I identified also is that nobody was really speaking to all of it. It was very segmented, and there's different ways of saying what's happening in the funnel. For example, like, we're not closing, right? That's something I hear all the time is we're not closing. What you're really saying is our tour to lease is bad. So you don't have a marketing problem, or, hey, we don't have enough leads. What you're really saying there typically in multifamily is your lead to tour is not very good. We're not getting enough. And you had to kind of listen through the noise to figure out, as a digital marketer, this is actually what they're saying. This is actually how I'm going to fix their problem. When a property manager says, I don't have enough leads, they may or may not be saying you don't have enough spend. I don't know. Again, I would want to look at the data, but typically what they're saying is, if I don't have enough leads, it means that they don't, in their mind, they don't have enough people walking in their door. And that was always confusing to me, because I'd be sitting there and knock, and I'm like, you had 110 leads last month. What do you mean you don't have enough? You didn't have enough leads. And then I would look and I'm like, oh, they only had 6 tours. So that was very confusing, right? And again, what good people will do is teach you that, hey, what they're actually saying is different than what they're saying. What they're saying is they need more people walking in their front door. Lead management's obviously a big part of this. It's a big challenge in our industry. And again, I think AI is even making this more confusing and more frustrating for property managers. But again, as a marketer, what you want to do is get in with good people, understand the lingo, understand these weird terms, to Jonno's point, aren't going anywhere. This is how the industry is going to operate. And again, we just want to bring clarity to it and actually be able to bring data to the conversation. When somebody says, I don't have enough leads, I don't have enough tours, as a marketer, we know how to fix that. Because it's very easy to get into the emotional, opinion-based marketing argument that happens every single day at every single property. It's opinion-based, and where you will survive and thrive is if you actually bring data to the conversation. And the 8-25-33 model will allow you to bring data. So when someone says, I don't have enough leads, I don't have enough tours, I don't have enough leases, you have data to back it up, why it's good or why it's not. And then the beautiful part of it is when this is working really well, Jonno, and you need more leases, it's as simple as just turning on the faucet at the top of the funnel. My favorite part about seeing funnels come into shape, which we see all the time, is it's so easy for us to go replicate it, right? When I talk about a scalable, replicatable funnel, this is what I'm talking about. When all these things are working in unison really, really well, then we can truly go spend money very quickly and get a result very quickly. 60 days is what we see, 30 to 60 days from start to finish. The multifamily prospect typically takes 10 to 13 points of contact. But again, my favorite part about this is when it's working, it's beautiful. It's amazing. It works in unison, and everyone wins. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to come back to is, that department segmentation. The bigger your corporation gets, you get all these departments, and then they all kind of, some departments are down at the bottom of the funnel, like operations, and then some of the departments like marketing is more at the top of the funnel. And then, the executive level, they're at the bottom of the funnel. I mean, they really just want to see the bottom line. Like, they really don't want to hear what's in the middle of the funnel and what's in the top of the funnel. They're really just speaking to the bottom line. So it's kind of interesting how some, like you said, you have to kind of interpret what people are saying, because they might say, I don't have enough leads. But when it's like you said, you have hundreds of leads. So it really is a problem of you're not working the leads the way you're supposed to make them turn into tours. And the 8-25-33 really helps you identify that, because you can say, well, I'm not hitting the mark. I'm less than 8 in this area, or I'm less than 25 in this area. I'm less than 33 in this area. So it gives you somewhere to go work. But what is the funnel looks really simple. It makes it so nice, but going from department to department to say, okay, well, if I actually have a people problem, what's the solution? Now I need to go do training, right? So me and Caleb would actually go and facilitate those trainings with the on-site staff, with the property managers, the regional managers, the leasing team. They all need different training to be able to do different segments of their job, because they're at different parts of the funnel. And obviously the property managers and the regionals, they don't need much training. That's why they got where they are. But, it is helpful to get everybody marching that same direction. And it does help it when you lead your own trainings, for example, because you can really set the narrative and help people kind of get on the same track. And that leads me to my next question. How important are response times when moving prospects through the funnel?
Yeah, we used to call this speed to the lead. If you've been in multifamily more than a minute, you've heard
another vocabulary term.
Yeah, speed to the lead is what you'll hear very early on. There is hundreds, thousands of articles you could read right now if you want to about how important speed to the lead is. What that's referring to is you're in a very competitive space. Multifamily digital marketing is incredibly competitive. Why is it competitive? Well, we just talked about how expensive, how much money is invested in these properties. How quickly you can get a response when you go to your website. When a prospect gets to your website, if they are inquiring in any CTA on your website, it means that they like what they see. They're likely submitting that information on, at least we have data to support that it's at least 3 to 5 competitor properties. They're submitting their information. If you're on an ILS platform, you can guarantee that your competitor is getting your information. Don't do that. But if that information is being submitted on your website, where you will win and lose in the first stage of the funnel is going to be speed to the lead. It simply means how quickly can you respond to the leads. And again, let's pretend we're not talking about multifamily for a second. This is just sales 101. How quickly can you respond to that prospect? That's ultimately going to determine how much value or how likely that prospect is to feel confident that they are working with a true professional. This is going to be their home, right? The most important decision they're going to make is their home. Whether they consciously or subconsciously realize it, how quickly you respond is a really big indicator of how that property is running. And I'm sorry to say this. Some people need to hear it. Some of you guys are terrible at that, and that's why you're losing in multifamily digital marketing.
Tell us how you really feel, Caleb.
You're taking 24 hours to respond. 24 hours is an eternity.
Yeah.
Your competitor is going to beat that 24-hour response time. Looking at data this morning, there was a group that says, "Hey, we're struggling leasing." I look at their response time, and it's upwards of 36 hours. And I'm just like, you're going to continue to lose, even with the best digital marketing strategy in the world. if you can't be quick and efficient to respond to the leads, not just with AI, because I think your next question was about the authentic content that's going to happen. Look, we all can tell the AI slop that's going on the internet right now. Go on any social media and it's junky. The AI slop has ruined our space in a way that I think we need to pull back from very, very quickly, in my opinion. But they can't get a generic blurb that is very obviously AI. They need that personal human touch. I still believe a personal text, a personal phone call that makes connection. And it makes me want to lease with that person. So for example, I always go back to, we see a big challenge in our industry. We typically see about 50% of scheduled tours fall off between scheduling a tour and showing up. Following me? So 50% of people typically fall off. That is an indication of us being terrible at our jobs and not being efficient and understanding how important this is to them, because 50% of people should not be falling off.
Let's think about the dentist for example. I always use this example with clients, right? If I'm scheduled to go for my cleaning at the dentist, I booked it 6 months ago. I've totally forgotten about this. I have no idea this is coming up, right? But what do I get? I get that little text message on my phone that says, "Hey, are you going to show up for your appointment?" Type yes if you are. Type no if you're not. And I type the little Y. And I'm good to go. They're confirmed, right? I know I'm going to my appointment. That all happens automated, right? And it works. So it's kind of like the point is text your leads, right? Like text them before their appointment. It's a no-brainer. If every dentist and every doctor's office in the whole world right now is doing it, it's probably like, hey, this works. They wouldn't pay for it if it didn't do the job it's designed to do.
Yeah, I'm more willing to cancel an appointment on Bay Place apartments, but I'm not gonna disappoint Jonno if he's sitting there and waiting for me with a coffee. If he called me last night or texted me this morning and said, "Hey, can I get a coffee or a drink ready for you?" I'm not disappointing that person. I'm gonna respond yes or no in that moment, and I'm gonna show up. But if it's just Bay Place apartments, a brick wall, I can turn on a brick wall. I have no hard feelings about that. But a human being is actually still what drives the conversation, and I don't want to disappoint that person. So I think it's really important in our lead to tour stage. There is a lot of fall off that happens, I think, because we've over relied on AI. In the middle of the funnel here, the lead qualification and CRM delivery, really into the lead management aspect, it really should still be managed by a human being. And again, I think the more and more data we see is lead to tour is staying consistent even with AI, roughly around 25%. But where we're seeing a bigger problem is the schedule a tour into tour showing up stage in the middle of the funnel falling off because there's been no human engagement, no human touch.
Yeah, a tip that I got from a PBS show many years ago is every person in the world, their favorite word is their own name. And it's such a good tip because, when you're writing emails, hi, Caleb, is so much better than hey. And also using your own name, so the real world example is you're texting your prospect, you want them to show up for their tour, and you say, "Hi, Caleb, this is Jonno. I can't wait for you to show up for your tour." Obviously something way less cheesy than that. "I got a free coffee, when you get here. Can't wait to see you." Obviously everybody has their own personal style, but the AI can't replicate that. It can't fake being a human. That's illegal, right? So, you're not going to get that personal touch.
Yep. And again, going back to the biggest financial decision they're going to make, last point about this, and again, I want to get into some more of the meat and potatoes of how this all comes together, but we, for whatever reason, don't want to admit that we're a sales industry. It's almost like it's the unspoken truth. We are selling apartments, right? This is sales. This is high stakes sales. There's big revenue behind acquiring that lease, but for whatever reason, we don't want to call it sales. And I've experienced that my entire career in multifamily, especially in the operation realm, is we'll say community manager or assistant, fancy title, instead of just being like, this is a sales position.
It's so true, because if you look at the marketing as a whole, right? Like I've worked in marketing my whole career. Every single marketing position I've ever held, I was directly adjacent to a sales department. And they taught me the number one thing, my ABCs. Always be closing. And if you don't know your ABCs, then you know nothing about sales, right? It's like you have to have that lead pipeline so you can always be closing. And the funnel is your lead pipeline. So it's like, how can you always be closing? You have to always have leads in front of you. How can you always have leads in front of you? You have to be working your leads, texting those leads.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to get into a little bit of the meat and potatoes of, all right, how does this practically come together? And I want to use the example about you have a 100-unit property. I'm going to use 100 units. You can apply if you have 250 or 300. We can do some more math after. But what this should look like is if you have 100 units, you need one lease to move 1 point of occupancy. Pretty simple math, right? That's why we're using the 100 units. So if you're at 92 and you want to get to 95, you need 3 leases. If you need 3 leases, what you're going to need to do is get 9 tours if you're meeting the 33% tour to lease. And if you're getting 9 tours, we know on our side to get the 9 tours at the 25% lead to tour, reverse the math, and I can do 9, 18, 27, 36. So I need 36 sales qualified leads if my lead to tour is 25%. Now I want to back it up one more step. How much should I be spending, Jonno? Well, the answer is pretty simple, right? What we want to do on our side is add a very clear cost to conversion. That's why PPC is so powerful and why our strategy kicks the ILS butt. It's because we can add a very specific number to you going to get those 36 sales qualified leads, because Google allows us to tag them and quantify it very clearly, CAC, cost of acquisition, for that lead. So then all we need to do is take the 36 and we need to times it by whatever your CAC is in Google or your cost of conversion. And all of a sudden we have a very clear game plan that we can come to you and say, you need to spend $920 next month, and we can project 3 leases. When we follow that math and everyone does their part of the funnel really, really well, it's a beautiful, healthy cost per lease. What doesn't get us there oftentimes is middleman, roadblockers, AI, ILS, some of these things in the funnel that kind of prevent us from having the healthy conversion from one stage to the next. But this $300 cost per lease is, over my career, I still believe, a healthy, realistic target that we still hit a lot of our clients on, that people oftentimes almost laugh at me that you can't do that. We can. It happens all the time. And a big part of that is not having extra marketing spend in places you just shouldn't have it. Why do I hate ILS? It adds heavy dollars to my cost of acquisition, my cost per lease. If I have to include that heavy cost per lease in my final number, if I have 4 leases and I have to have PPC and ILS, it typically does double my cost of acquisition. So I hate it because it's not favorable to what I'm trying to do, which is lease at the lowest cost possible.
Let's go back to the ILS example, right? Because I need a good segue to show my graphic here, if I can figure out how to screen share.
I believe in you.
Okay, so the dreaded checkbox returns. We said we were going to talk about this. I bring this up because I want to give a very practical example, circling back to a lot of the things that we talked about during this conversation, okay? I go to apartments.com and I'm a customer. I'm looking for an apartment to live in, and I've made it to apartments.com, and I'm going to submit my lead form to your property. Okay, all of you, multifamily marketers and property managers out there, I want to live in your property. And this box right at the bottom, you can see with the highlight and the little exclamation marks, is checked. Okay, I'm going to receive listings from other properties. Okay, so what's the first thing that's going to happen? I'm sending a message to your property, but I'm instantly going to get listings for other properties. Those properties are instantly going to contact me with their AI. So I'm instantly getting contacted by your competitors once I submit to your property. Okay, so why is that bad? We were talking about the speed to lead, right? So your competitor instantly has speed to lead over you but I submitted my lead to your property. Well, you're not going to contact me for 3 hours, or you're not going to contact me for 24 hours, or I'm going to sit in some kind of an AI cadence and nobody's going to pluck the lead out of the AI and start working it. So I'm not going to get worked by Rhonda or Caleb or your amazing leasing team. I'm going to instantly get contacted by your competitor, which it drives me crazy. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, Caleb's a genius. Like, how come everybody else in multifamily marketing didn't think of this 5 years ago?
Yeah, and it's why we want to apply the lead to tour number. Why that lead to tour number is so important is it really is the first step of your funnel. And you're not ever going to be able to be at 25% if 50%, 30%, if a large chunk of your strategy is going to this. That's why your lead tour is going to suck. It's why it's going to stink. It's why you're going to fail. And it's why you're going to spend more money than you need to. Abort this strategy, and your lead tour will instantly go up. I said last week, fire them tomorrow and start running PPC with a agent, a group, an agency, a prop tech like us. And we are going to double your lead tour, not because we're geniuses, but we're going to just get rid of the fat. We're going to get a very clean acquisition funnel from Google to your website, and then conversion on your website. And there's not going to be as much opportunity to be plucked off. That's why lead to tour is so important, and why so much of our industry is stuck is because they're still doing this right here. And they're like, my lead to tour is 12%. I'm like, well, then you need to spend double what you're spending right now to get that lease projection down the rest of the funnel, right? Because that math we just talked about, the 1, 3, and 10, if your lead to tour is at 12.5% instead of 25%, Jonno, guess what you got to do now? You have to spend double what you're
spend twice as much. So most of our problems in our funnel are fixed in multifamily by spending more. I'm going to spend more. I'm going to spray and pray. I'm going to be more places. That's usually not the problem. It's typically in that lead to tour stage is you're using this as a backbone strategy that's just preventing you from having that 25%. And we see 25% very consistently on almost all of our clients. Jonno, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we see that all day, every day. Sometimes we're a little bit lower, and we have to, it's not, you can't snap your fingers and get 25%. You actually have to have a pretty targeted conversion strategy on Google and actually be intentful about how you're running your PPC. That brings me to one other point I wanted to make sure I mentioned today, which is in multifamily, what a lot of these agencies have done, I will not name names, but they've offshored your PPC, right? They have sold a contract to you, and then now that your PPC is being run overseas by somebody that has no clue how to run multifamily digital marketing. They have no clue how to target. They do not understand what conversion truly means for you as an operator from lead to tour. And that's how our industry has scaled PPC. And that's, again, a huge problem. So when you're buying PPC or you're running PPC, you should be asking questions like, who is the literal person that's running my campaign? Let me see the ads.
Let me see the ads. Let me talk to the human being. Let me talk through. If your lead to tour is low, it's either your website or your digital marketing strategy. In my opinion, that's one of two things that you can fix very quickly. Or obviously, your lead management. But in general, generating leads is the first and most important step of the funnel. And again, guys, this is really simple. Get rid of this right here, and you're going to be a lot stronger.
I think of it like an analogy is streaming, right? We got Netflix, and we got Paramount, and we got Hulu, and we got all these different platforms. And what do they need to give you to make you continue to buy their platform? They need to give you content, right? So if they didn't give you any content, like if you're sitting around and you're paying for Netflix every month, and then all the time you're like, oh, but the movie I want to watch is on Apple, or the movie I want to watch is on Hulu. It's like eventually you're gonna be like, why am I paying for this Netflix if there's never anything to watch on there and I don't use it, right? And it's the same thing with ILS. It's like, well, I never get any leases from here, so why am I paying for it? And yeah, I get all these leads, but the leases don't come from those leads. So why am I paying for these leads that my team is working and they don't turn into anything?
Right. Well said. I think that the biggest challenge is the alternative. For a really long time, we just didn't have an alternative. And even when there's a very clear alternative, there is a large marketing effort to make sure that you don't see the alternative. We want to talk about Zillow here in just a minute. Really sad news coming out of the Zillow realm this week of 700 layoffs. I think it was 500 this week and 200 at the beginning of the year. So 700 layoffs in the Zillow organization this year. And again, why does ILS continue to keep dominating? Well, when we see a clear alternative start to win and grow, what happens in multifamily is they get bought out and they get squished. They get sent to one of the big dogs and they stop progressing the way that we should be progressing in the industry. What we're talking about is the most basic fundamental principle of marketing in the most simplest format, which is don't send leads to your competitor. Yet the majority of us are still doing that. And if you want to increase your lead to tour, if you want to bring stability to your funnel, like we're just showing you guys, right? One lease, 3 tours, 10 sales qualified leads. Get rid of the ILS, because again, it may be a sales qualified lead, but if your sales qualified lead is going to 2 to 3 of your competitors, all of a sudden it's a lot less sales qualified for you because you're just having to compete at a higher rate. That's why lead to tour, to us as digital marketing, it's really near and dear to our heart because there's a better way to get leads into your lap, into your community.
All right, Caleb, do you want to segue to the Zillow article, or do you want to stay on some math? I don't know. My brain is a little bit mathed out. I kind of want to go to the Zillow article.
Yeah, bring up the funnel one more time. I'll wrap it up on the funnel, guys. And
you got it.
Just pointing out a couple more things I wanted to touch on today. This looks overwhelming. I just quickly want to go through each stage real quick.
Yes, please. That's the one part where I was like, actually, I think that would be like the most beneficial thing.
Yeah, we'll just quickly talk about the good, bad, and the ugly with each stage, and we'll do 30 seconds to a minute on each. But digital marketing lead generation, what does that mean? We're generating your leads, PPC, ILS, social. We've talked about all the ways not to do it. You should not be running ILS. Basically, this is going to be the thing that is the giant claw reaching out into the big universe of digital marketing and saying, trying to pick up leads, it's trying to acquire leads. This is obviously the biggest part of the funnel. The best strategy here is going to be the direct-to-consumer strategy. Again, anti-ILS is a better way to put it. Go directly to where your competitors are searching. Be in front of exactly where your be in front of exactly where your prospects are looking each and every day. Again, Google search, Google PPC is still king, regardless of what Digital, wants to make crazy claims about AI, yada, yada, yada. We already talked about that. Google search is still king, and until I see data, I'm not changing my opinion there. Lead capture. So once you've actually got in front of your prospect sees your Google ad. They're going to click on it. You're only going to pay when that prospect clicks on your ad. Do not stay away from shiny objects and shiny organizations touting low cost per click. Look how many impressions I got. Look how many clicks I got. That's not success. Success is conversion. How many conversions did you get? Meaning lead capture. When they come from PPC over to your website, when they actually submit their information and say, I'm interested, from your Google ad, there's a lead capture. That's when conversion happens. That is really success, not having a lot of clicks. Real success is real conversion. A lot of people submitting their information.
So to simplify, guest card in your CRM.
Yeah, guest card in your CRM created, Google conversion tag fired. That's how you're going to be able to replicate that and go tell Google, go get me more of this and less of everything else. That's how Jonno and his team brings down cost of conversion. Is we replicate conversion, we don't replicate clicks. If you're running a maximized click campaign, for the most part, you have a bad digital marketing partner. Sorry to break it to you. You should be always, for the most part, running a maximized conversion strategy. Once lead capture takes place on your website, that information will then be passed over to your CRM or your AI system. That's going to be the thing like a Lease. It's going to be the thing like Knock. It's going to be that capture device. Again, we talked about prop tech. That's going to be the prop tech world, where the lead is then captured, and it's going to go into a qualification stage. What is qualification? It's going to start asking questions like when they're moving in, pets, pricing, discounts, you name it. All these questions where we go into qualification. That's where the lead nurture stage really has been built. The AI prop tech industry has really taken off because we have a big need, because it's the same, guys, it's the same 10 questions that every prospect is asking, by the way. Don't overcomplicate this process here in lead nurture. I used to love the term lead nurture. Lead nurture, I'm a little bit turned off from it lately because, again, everyone's nurturing their leads. Every AI is nurturing leads. They're just not doing it well, right? Prospects want to talk to human beings. They want to be nurtured in real ways because they do feel like they have, this is where they're living. This is where they're going to live. So they want to feel like they're being nurtured the right way. Don't just let AI run 100% of your nurture software. And expect that this stage is going to go well from lead delivery, from lead qualification. Basically, is it a good lead or is it a bad lead? Do they meet the 3 times rental criteria? We're going to try and collect that information here. That's when it's typically handed over into the CRM, the Knox, the Leases, the Resman, whatever CRM you are using. That's when your property management team typically kind of picks it up. That's usually when they engage. Again, I'm going to challenge you guys. I think that we got to look up funnel a little bit and start engaging with those leads a little bit earlier on in that lead qualification stage. I don't want to miss that. But again, for today's conversation, we're going fast. It's in the CRM now. The property management team, the AI has vetted it. They have given us information where we think they are a good fit. That's where the delivery is going to take place. And that's when the property management team will begin to work the lead. And that's where you'll see lead management happen, right? That's where it's going to have to go from they're qualified. How do I then get them in to actually visit my community? You're going to have to build a relationship. Again, AI is not going to do that for you in a good way. Lastly, we've done the lead management stage. They've booked a tour time. Finally, they're there. They're in front of you. Now it's just, again, back to sales, right? We have to sell. We have to be understanding that we are a sales industry. And that's where that 33%, we expect 2 or 3 people to not lease at your community, by the way. That's why we say 33%. We know it's unreasonable to expect to close every tour that takes place. But I see people close 50% all the time, consistently, by the way. It can be done. But again, 33 is kind of the healthy average that everyone says we should be closing 33%. So that's kind of how the funnel math breaks down. Obviously at the lead start, our goal is to get you those qualified cost of conversion really early on directly to where your prospects are living to give you a hope that the rest of the funnel will follow suit. But again, there is a lot of stages here, guys. That 10 to 13 points of contact is a lot. There's a lot of steps and stages that will happen. If you just take one away, your funnel collapses, it falls apart. So again, we wanted to put this math in front of you guys today to kind of explain each step of the funnel, what health looks like, why the multifamily math is so important. And if you're not leasing, don't just go spend more money. The answer is not go spend more money. You should be dissecting each stage of the funnel and only spending more money when you've identified, hey, you just actually truly need more leads. Not running ILS and saying, hey, I'm not getting enough leads. Well, of course you're not, because your lead to tour is at 12%. If you double that all of a sudden, your tour count would be quite literally double if you could double your lead to tour. So you don't have a lead problem, you have an ILS problem. And again, kind of similar in the middle from lead management, tour to lease. I need more I need more prospects because you're leasing at 10% when they get to your property instead of 33%. Yeah, you don't have a lead problem, you have a product problem, you have a pricing problem. Your comp down the road is running $300 lower rents than you are. So it's going to be really tough for you to close that. Again, it's a fluid conversation. I hope this math made sense. As always, guys, come and book a consultation. We would love to kind of walk you through every step of this a little bit more in detail. There's a lot more that goes into this. What we're going to be able to do very confidently is deliver you that low cost of conversion, aka low costing guest card. And that's where we're going to win. And then from there, again, every step of the funnel is really important.
Yeah, and one thing that helped me kind of understand the 82533, just kind of to close out as we transfer to the Zillow conversation, those are really floor numbers. Those are kind of like the bottom, the minimum that you should be able to achieve. And if you're not, then that's how you identify, I have a problem here. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm excited to show this. Caleb, you always have your ear to the ground in multifamily, and I always like to hear the drama alerts from you. So this was one that just came out recently. And I remember the last big drama alert in the multifamily community was, hey, Zillow bought rent. And, they like slashed like half the staff or I don't know what the exact story was, but they didn't keep a lot of the staff. People, got pink slips, the day that it all kind of took place. And that was maybe about a year ago. So this is almost like a year later on the dot.
Yeah, and let me start by saying it's really sad. There's 700 families that were negatively impacted by this, and if you've ever lost your job, you can relate to this. That this is it's painful when you see part of the multifamily. We just talked about how multifamily is really a network of very small people. These people will land on their feet because they're good people. I've met a lot of them. They're awesome reps, awesome developers, awesome people. So it's always really sad when you hear about 700 people, 700 families being impacted. Really, I think, to transition, obviously it is very, 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 very sad. To transition to, a year ago when rent was acquired by Zillow, it was hard not to question what their strategy was going to be when they, in my opinion, completely cut their most successful product. The path for Zillow was to get into the PPC space by acquiring rent. That seemed like the obvious, clear conclusion. Why they would want to buy rent was to get into a very clear digital marketing strategy that was going to yield really strong results for Zillow. And clearly that has not taken place. Their Q2 earnings are out. And if you are an investor in CoStar or Zillow, I am not, but I do watch it closely. And if you're an investor in either of these, you're going to see that it's not going well. Their stock has been going the wrong way for a good little chunk of time now. It's why it's happening because exactly what we're talking about and what we're so passionate about with cutting your ILS. People are waking up that your ILS is not a viable digital marketing strategy, and they're going to have to pivot. And there's going to be more of this in the coming years, especially as AI continues to take off, and maybe even more importantly, that our digital marketing buyers become more savvy in this space. As our digital marketing buyers become more savvy in this space, and they start to question more and more of, hey, what's actually performing and why is it performing? Then I think we're going to continue to see the ILS kind of trend this way until they almost are forced to wake up and give the people what they want, which is a direct-to-consumer strategy where they're not selling off your leads. Again, I encourage you guys, ask your ILS rep. I want you guys to ask your ILS rep on the next call, are you handing my leads to my competitors? What does this box mean on my listings? Why are my leads going to my competitors?
I would love to be a fly on the wall during that conversation.
Jonno was a fly on the wall with many Zillow conversations back in our multifamily days on the operational fence. And he used to say, why do you beat up these guys so bad? And I'm like, because I'm forced into this terrible contract, because they make you sign a 12-month contract. And after 3 months, things aren't going well and you want out. And they're going to say too bad. Guys, don't sign a 12-month contract. Everything at Lead Start is built on a 30-day out. I'm so confident in our ability to target your prospects in a clear, concise, attributable way that I don't need a contract between us to make me do my job really well for you. We're going to allow you to have a 30-day out at any point. Don't be signing these long-term ILS contracts because, again, there is going to be movement and shake that happens from this, right? Clearly something big is happening in our industry, and it's been happening for a long time, where I think our buying, our contracts are getting smarter. Our users, the people that we are selling our digital marketing services to, whether that's ILS or PPC, they're getting smarter and they're asking more questions. And the beauty of AI is it is bringing clarity to some of these conversations. We're able to build quicker than we ever have been before. We're getting better attribution. Attribution has killed us in multifamily for 20 years, and it's getting better finally, right? We're seeing pieces of that. And the more clarity we get, the less they're going to be able to hide behind we got a lot of people to your website. That's not a good answer. That's not an acceptable answer. How many leads turn into tours? Going back to the multifamily math, how many leads did your listing actually convert into the tour stage? And if it's not anywhere close to 25%, then come talk to us and let us show you how to get to 25%.
So Caleb, I'm looking at this article a little bit closer, and it says Zillow lays off 500 employees ahead of Q2 earnings. I mean, I don't want to trash Zillow too bad, but it's like, to me, it just seems like they're going to have bad earnings. They're hedging their bets by, at least the investors will say, well, yeah, they had bad earnings, but they did lay off all those employees. So we're going to make a bunch of money from that. So, I won't sell my stock. I mean, is that kind of like a fair assumption? Yeah,
the earnings actually came out yesterday, and they were not favorable. They were not good. So you're exactly right. Pretty astute analysis is exactly what's going on. And again, if you've been following their stock for a while, it's no surprise what's going on. Follow the money. That's actually a term that Jonno says to me all the time, and it's a very good term. Follow the money of what's taking place in our industry. The shift into prop tech and the shift into PPC is going to continue and force the ILS to be more transparent and give better results. Stop sharing your leads with your competitors. They will be forced into changing their model to not sharing their leads. I would love it. A win for Lead Start, a win for me personally, would be Zillow running PPC. I actually think that would be a great thing for our industry, because I can't even imagine how many contacts they have deep in our space in every inch of this country, that they could show them what this actually should look like. But again, why can't they do that? They can't do that at scale, right? They're not able to scale that solution to, thousands of operators the way that we're going to be able to. They have a model that's built very, very different, and it's an unfavorable model for you. And every time that somebody gets far enough along to disrupt that model, what do? They come and buy them out, and that model disappears, and they make sure it stays disappeared. So keep asking questions, guys. Like multifamily, I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 10 years is you should be asking questions all the time. You should be poking, and there should be data behind your opinions. As a digital marketing team, I don't really care for I feel like or I like this. Show me the data. If it doesn't fit the multifamily math, if it's not converting 8, 25, and 33, I'm not really interested in it, because eventually people will wake up and they will go to the next and best thing. And I believe, again, PPC is still incredibly underutilized. Last point I'll make about this real quick is I think I've seen a big shift in Google actually starting to almost buddy up with the local communities on PPC more than they ever have been. How do I know that? If you go look at some of your Google My Business, GMB, GMP, whatever, the acronym we change every 3 days, the GMB actually has more favorable functionality for its listings. It's allowing pricing, it's allowing availability. Google is trying to accommodate more to you as the property manager, as the asset manager, as the operator. The more that happens, the more it's a signal that PPC is going to be the future to connecting you and your renter. And you're not going to need that middleman like the Zillow, like the apartments.com, like the whatever other ILS that you're on. And I think that's the exciting part to me is I think I'm seeing more and more signs that ILS is going to continue to get almost pushed to the side. And obviously in today's conversation, it's a sad thing because we hate seeing multifamily colleagues lose their jobs. I encourage them to move out of the ILS network and get into a digital marketing company where you can enjoy and stand behind your results and not have to give fake answers and not have to say things that as a digital marketer are not true. It's really fun when the data starts to speak for itself. I get excited to get on my client calls the majority of times because the conversations are fun, right? We see teams win, we see strong data, and we don't have to have opinions based on nonsense. We can stand true on data that's exciting. When lead to tour is really strong, when lead to lease is really good, when our cost conversion's below expectation, and then ultimately our cost for lease being really low, we all win. I got one more point. My favorite example of this is and credit to Jonno and the team for really nailing this one. We had a little operator, and when I say little, I mean that respectfully. He's a smaller operator, I think newer to the game, out of Memphis, and he came to us back in February.
That's right.
And he was just like, look, this has been 3 years and we can't get this property leased up. They've tried everything. They've done everything. They were even running PPC with a large industry PPC provider. We came in and we pulled all of their data. We pulled all of we built a funnel just like we do for every other client. Now he is screaming it to the high heavens to everyone that will listen to him that this is the roadmap, because in really in 3 months, we stabilized that asset. And what he says is it took, for 3 years, they couldn't move the needle here. Leasing season, not leasing season, they couldn't move the needle.
Well, and Memphis is just a tough market. I mean, you look at Nashville, tons of people moving there, going for to be students or just moving there because the industry. Nashville's a total poppin', city. Memphis is not.
Yeah, and I love that story because we didn't apply rocket science. We followed the multifamily math. I have an awesome team at Lead Start that built campaigns, that got everything organized. We did a website audit. We did everything we needed to do to be successful. And really within 3 months, a full, prospect 90-day window, they got all the leases they need. And now we're pulling back the PPC spend.
Yep.
I love that. I love when clients can pull back their PPC spend and they can spend less because they've leased up. That means we've won. That means you've won. And that means we're going to have a really successful, healthy, long-term relationship that's not built on fluff and donuts being sent to the property, even though we will do that for you guys as well. It's going to be built on data. And again, I just don't think that the ILSs can provide that to you. And this week's example is just another example of where I think ILS is going to continue to shift and try to convince you that they are ahead of the curve There's going to be no better strategy than going right to your prospects. Get right to your prospects, go to where they are searching, get in front of them, and convert them right there.
It's the same strategy that retail has gone through over the last probably 10 or 15 years. Everybody's heard about the DTC website, direct to consumer website. Why am I going to drop ship all of my product to Amazon and pay the drop shipping fee and pay the, the seller fees and pay everything that I have to pay? If I could take that same marketing budget and drive the same consumer directly to my website and get 100% of the profit, that's exactly what I want to do. This is just the next iteration of that for multifamily. They're finally understanding that the DTC revolution happened. Direct to consumer is the way that you keep most of your money, and you're going to acquire the customer at the lowest cost, because all the extra stuff that goes along with all the fees and everything, that adds up. It's real money.
Absolutely. They got to pay for that Super Bowl commercial somehow, right?
That's
and
right.
it's not going to be the way that you want. They're not spending that big the big contract that the big money, the big contract that you pay them is not going to improving your funnel. It's just not. It's adding noise at the top. And they're not going to be able to hit 25% lead to tour like we see with PPC all day long. So again, I asked the question, why would you not be running a PPC only strategy? If you have 300 units, you're going to need, even in a dire situation, you're going to need 10 leases next month. We can go get you 30 tours and 120 sales qualified leads in Google. I guarantee we can do that. So why do we even let ILS enter the conversation if we know their lead to tour is going to be half of what we're going to be able to do on PPC? Why would we even entertain that, that idea and that discussion, right? We should be spending our money where our consumers, like you just said, are living. Let's cut out the fat, go directly to where they're at.
Yeah, it's definitely the easy button solution of 10 years ago or of 15 years ago. Back when it was just apartments.com, there was no Zillow rentals, there was no rent.com, there was no apartmentlisting.com. There wasn't all these players. And it kind of seems like after apartments.com did what they did, everybody else kind of got wind of like, hey, there's this $1 trillion industry over here called multifamily, and I could just enter it and start pulling money out of it. And you get, what we saw over the last 10 years, all these prop tech industries, everybody fighting for, to be the next ILS. Even Yardi made an ILS, Rent Cafe, which has actually been very successful for them. So it's just interesting to see, everybody kind of piled in, and now it's so diluted that there's just so much noise. And it's like, why would I even participate in any of that economy? I can pay $30 and get a sales qualified lead that is going to schedule a tour. Give me the $30 leads all day long.
100%. That's exactly it. It really is as simple as that. And I know that sometimes it sounds like we're oversimplifying, but 10 years now of obsessing over this data, and building that multifamily math has led me to that exact example. We're not asking the right questions. We're not pushing back enough. We are a sales industry. At the end of the day, any way we want to cut it, we are a sales industry. If you're in marketing, you're in sales. If you're in multifamily marketing, you're in sales. I just don't think that there's enough pushback to the ILS, and we want to be a voice of reason, and we want to help you go get that $30 cost per lead and not have to spend any wasted money.
Well, if you agree with us, book a demo. And if you disagree with us, book a demo and come tell us why. And we'd love to hear about it, because we do hear a lot of different interesting opinions, and we do change our mind, pretty regularly. We have our little conversations amongst ourselves, and Caleb changes my mind all the time. And I'd like to think maybe I changed his mind once or twice too. So
yeah, you absolutely do. One of the, I'll end with this. I think it is really important to be able to change your mind in digital marketing, because data and conversion is going to shift. It's going to look different. It's going to happen quicker than we've ever seen it before, with a lot of these AI prop tech companies kind of shifting what we think conversion is. The important thing, guys, I think to keep pushing back on, and the thing to keep, your North Star needs to be that multifamily math. And if it doesn't fit that math, if it doesn't fit that mold, be cautious of it. Don't go jump into a 12-month contract. Don't go jump into a long-term relationship until it's proven its value in your funnel. I feel like I get pained when I hear some of these conversations, because we've been sold something that doesn't exist. We don't want to overpromise we don't overpromise. But that $30 cost per lead is attainable for us over a decade of doing this, and we feel confident we can do that for you. Again, push back, ask hard questions, and ultimately, if it doesn't fit your funnel math, like we just spent the last hour covering, if it doesn't fit your funnel math, don't feel like you have to go sign a long-term contract just because they're a friend or just because you've known them. A lot of these awesome reps are going to go over to other companies, and I think a lot of our buying decisions go into relationship. And if I'm being frank, that's not a good way to buy. You should be buying what is actually fitting your funnel math. What's going to get you from 8% lead to lease? What's going to get you from your lead to tour being at 25%? What's going to close 1 out of every 3 tours for you? And if it's not complementing that strategy, it's not worth anything to your stack, your digital marketing stack.
Yeah, and to really put it in real terms, I've done the lease, where you see how many leases came from each source, and you may get enough leases from Zillow 1 month, or you may get enough leases from apartments.com 1 month, but go look at the whole year. Go look at the entire portion of your contract and say, did I get what I needed every month that I paid the bill for that contract? And there's just no world where the answer is yes. I have not seen a single property that consistently month over month got everything that they needed and everything that they paid for from ILS. There's winner months and there's loser months, and you really just can't afford to have that in your funnel when you're paying the really high premium price of apartments.com especially.
The great part about PPC, Jonno, to your point, is we on PPC get to turn down that knob. We get to reduce the spend at any time. The beauty of running PPC, a side benefit, is you can turn down that spend at any point, right? You send an email, send me a text, send our team a message, and if you're spending $3,000, we go down to $500 if you don't need leads. We can go into maintenance mode where we're just trickling very little lead volume over to you. You can't turn down your ILS contract in December, right? There's not an option to reduce your contract terms in December when it's going to be slow. So what is a side benefit of getting a direct-to-consumer strategy? It's actually being able to reduce your spend and save at the favorable times, like the middle of December, where we know prospects aren't going to be incredibly active. So again, there's a lot of things that we haven't even discussed of side benefit, but come book a consultation with us. We'll kind of get into all the nitty gritty of what your pain points are and how our solution can help kind of fit, obviously the funnel math, but then again, ultimately save you money.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap it there. This is a great conversation, Caleb. One more last final, thoughts and prayers for the 500 former Zillow families that are going out into the world. We wish the best for all of you. If one of you just happens to have made your way over here.
Yeah, and come give us a conversation. We're always hiring. Come talk with us and see how we can get you over to the good side of the fence, and allow the data to speak for itself and give you something excited to sell in the multifamily world.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Lead Start Multifamily Podcast. Thank you, Caleb. Another week, another podcast, another multifamily show. So let's just keep on going. We'll see you guys next week again. Thanks everybody for watching. Goodbye.